The conversations behind these doors are not what you think.
Engine 4, residential fire.
Engine 313, engine 311, engine 3.
People think they know what firefighters run into. They almost never see what we carry home. The public sees the response. This show is about the costs.
Curiosity catches us all. There is much more.
We're here because the fire service has a public image everyone recognizes, but a private cost far few people understand. This podcast exists to help close that gap. Welcome to Why Are We Here? What the public doesn't see. I'm Greg, a second-generation firefighter with 15 years on the job in King County, just south of Seattle, Washington, and I'm joined by my co-host, Amy. Amy, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, hello. My name is Amy. I am a producer on this documentary, and I am a civilian. I don't have any family members that ever served in the fire service that I know of, and I'm a mom of two sons, and so I guess why I'm here is to represent the public who doesn't see what you guys go through.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's kind of the biggest reason we wanted to start this podcast alongside with the movie is because people think they understand the fire service, but they only really see one side of it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And, you guys come in when we are just like at our worst, scariest moment. And I don't think that we think about, well, what happens after you guys, fix everything and then go back to the firehouse.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely the version most people recognize, but there is a version because, like you, I have two boys at home and a wife and two dogs, so we do have lives outside of the fire service, and it can be taxing, both the calls that we go on and coming home from those calls.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that was sort of an aha moment for me, I think the type of person that's drawn to the fire service, besides, let's say being like a legacy, and just knowing and being up front and close, is there's a calling for you guys. It's like you want to help, you want to take care of, your community.
There's definitely a duty to serve. I don't know if it's a genetic thing or biological that comes from it. Both my grandfathers were in the military. One was in the Air Force, one was in the Navy. My dad went Navy. He also became a firefighter after he retired from the Navy. I did not put time in the military service. He kind of talked me out of that. If you can guess my age, there was maybe another desert war that was happening at that point in time. But you do get to a spot in that you want to do more, and sitting behind a computer and office jobs, which are things that I've had, isn't where I saw myself long term. I just couldn't do the commutes. I couldn't sit behind the desk. I didn't feel like I was making a difference. And so I started a little bit older and started volunteering actually as a firefighter first and got hooked instantaneously. I don't know if I don't want to say ADHD, but definitely having something new every single day and working with a team reminded me of playing sports. There's just a lot to the job itself that is super appealing. Obviously there's stuff like time off and good pay and, proper pensions and stuff like that, depending on where you live. But the reality is every day is different, and you do get a sense of sometimes, most of the time, actually driving home, like I did good. I did something important today. And I think that's a huge win. There's a lot of other bonuses that go with it too, but there is some heavy stuff that comes with that as well.
Well, I mean, to go home feeling like, okay, I mean, obviously not every day is going to be great, but that satisfaction that you did your part, I want to kind of, double click on that, because, how many people are going through life just sort of, not quite sure, what am I doing this for? And, so I think that that's a really, really special thing that shouldn't be ignored. And, we are always just sort of in our heads doing our thing. And then we see a fire truck go by, and, sometimes people just get annoyed that they have to pull over. And then other times, if you're, a little more present, you're thinking, oh my gosh, I wonder like what they're off to do. And so, no, I think it's a special thing and a special breed of human that we are so fortunate to have. And obviously, I'm so grateful.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're thankful, and make a kind of tongue-in-cheek joke that everybody pays their taxes because we are funded by taxpayer stuff. But it is important. I mean, it is something. I was actually watching another documentary on a fire department in Indianapolis and how they kind of started, and it literally started by folks wanting to just do better for their neighbor and started these little fire brigades. And then most of those turned into what's an interesting animal is there were multiple fire brigades. And to get the insurance money for the buildings, they had to be the first ones on scene, so they could be called what was called first due. And all my whole life, I always thought first due means it was your backyard and you were first due to it. But no, it meant first due to be paid by the insurance company because they had these little insurance plaques that they had to go take from the building and hold on to get their reimbursement. Obviously, this caused some turmoil between some of them, and there were fistfights. And I've heard stories like this in New York, Boston, I'm sure Baltimore, all the really old cities in the United States probably had similar incidents. And they were like, all right, well, this fighting isn't really working out for us. So the city decided to kind of step in, and they put together one of their first paid fire departments. But it's funny how, this was pre-Civil War, and how it actually starts in the fire service is a crazy little piece of kind of violence to kind of fight fire. And then now we're getting to the spot to where, 80% of our calls aren't really fire. They're actually emergency medicine, which is a different animal altogether. But most of us across the country are all hazard. There's still probably 60-70% are actually volunteers. Most of us are paid now, as far as like the folks that do this for a living. And we're lucky in some sense, but not all departments are the same. Where we're all the same, though, is the type of calls that we go on. And those can be anything nowadays from hazardous material to rope rescues to swift water events to what some people would call pin-in or extrications, or people trapped in vehicles and have to use jaws of life or spreaders to cut into those to get those people out. And of course, fires, which have changed dramatically over the years from the natural products we used to have to the petroleum products now that most of our houses are full of.
Yeah, you said petroleum products. And can you tell people a little bit more about what that is exactly? Because
I mean,
it's definitely been a change in how
yeah.
like how we shop and buy things and what our products are made out of.
Yeah, I mean, I think after the industrial age and we started finding out how great plastics were and how inexpensive it is, all plastics are petroleum products, and almost everything's plastic. You've got some sort of petroleum product or plastic in your carpet, potentially in your walls, definitely if you have wall coverings. You know, our shoes have it in. This hat probably has something in it, for the bill. My shirt probably has something in it somewhere for the buttons at some point in time. Your couch, it might be leather. It might be that pleather or fake leather, which is plastic. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy how much stuff actually has petroleum in it. And petroleum, obviously, as we know, it fuels our vehicles. And as we've seen, it burns very, very well and super, super quick. So it makes super hot, fast moving fires. So it just makes our job a little bit harder because it's hotter and we have to get there quicker and safely to get the life safety action out of the way as quickly as possible. And so, yeah, it's annoying, but it is what it is. That's where we live right now.
Well, so going back to what you were talking about, like historically, where the fire service, the origins. Now, obviously, back then there weren't plastics the way we have them now, ubiquitously. I mean, is it a kind of like warrior type of just going in there to fight the bad evil fires, like, or what do you think it was that sort of made neighbors band together, and certain fathers, and I'm assuming maybe there was some wives, but I doubt it at that time, going in, like what is that? Like that just, makes you want to go and, I mean, I guess it's like, is there like a bit of a pyromania in there, or is there anything
Maybe,
that,
maybe. I mean, I would bet that if you asked, a handful, maybe let's just say 100 firefighters, it'd probably be 50 to 80% that have burnt something in their life. Um, we're still, the majority of fire service is still male dominated. And, we were all boys at one time, and boys do stuff to test limits. Some of that might be fireworks, or maybe they have family members that have, guns or hunt, or just like to blow stuff up in their backyard or on the back 50. I don't know. But I think back in the day, the reality is part of it was neighbors helping neighbors, right? There is like a duty to serve, and people don't want to see things go up. I think a lot of part of it is also a financial piece, right? When you burn down a building or a business, there's a lot of loss there. And I think back in the day, there wasn't the same, I don't know, the loans might not have been the same. I'm not sure exactly how banking worked back then. I haven't done my history on that, but I can guarantee you if you had, let's say, a furniture store, or maybe you did printing or something like that, and you lost that, I can't imagine that you could come back from it as easy as you can today. And even today, it's not super easy. But the biggest piece is honestly probably life safety. It's about people at the end of the day. I mean, that's our biggest piece still today is life safety. It's our number one priority is life, and then property, and then the environment is kind of how we kind of regulate those three things.
yeah, no, it's so important because, you know, nowadays people are kind of just, I don't know, I think there is a bit of like oh, everything can just be replaced and built, and, but back then it would take a long time to sort of recoup. And so I think the quicker you could get in there, I'm sure it would have been so satisfying, to just like stop something from burning all the way, right?
Yeah,
Um,
well, originally, they had these horse-drawn carriages with pumpers, and they would do what we call surround and drown. So they'd do these pressurized systems that were on these horse-drawn carriages, and set up hose lines and set up streams of water and try to just like protect the other buildings around. Now, according to this documentary, I don't know if it's 100% true, but Indianapolis says that they were one of the first to be aggressive interior firefighting. So one of the original chief, I talk about leading from the front, he actually perished in a fire because his thought process that he wanted for the department once it became a full-time pay was to go interior with hose lines and find the seat of the fire, where the fire originated in or where it was the strongest, and put it out from the inside out instead of from the outside in. I'm sure there are other departments around the country that might have similar arguments that they were the first people to be aggressive interior firefighting. But it's just interesting to see, especially when you're thinking about this, this is pre-Civil War. They would still have horse-drawn carriages. They would have everything set up in the bay or in the barn, as they would call it, literally a barn, and then back the horses in, drop the harnesses on them, and then go as quickly as they could. And they would make it out of that station in 3 minutes, where our current times are trying to be well under 2 minutes. And we have fire engines now and not horses. So not, well, at least they're not 2 horsepower. They're more like
wow.
1,000. So yeah, it's interesting.
You said this documentary, but you're not talking about our documentary
No.
Spoke. This is something else that you watched and saw about this like claim of the Indianapolis wanting to control
Yeah.
the narrative there that they were the first.
Hey, maybe they were. I don't know.
Yeah.
Who's to know? But that is a good point that there is a documentary that this podcast is specifically going to be the official podcast of, and why we're doing this, and that's Spoke, the documentary. Why don't you tell us a little bit about like what you see this documentary being?
Well, okay, so actually, let me back up and give a little bit of context how I got involved. It's now a couple of years in the making, and originally it was the story of a retired fire captain by the name of Rudy Pospisil, and he is a three-time cancer survivor. And so that if that doesn't just kind of like, wait, what? Three times, uh, and he got on his bike, which is part of where the Spoke name title comes from, and rode around the world to raise awareness. And I got involved a little bit at a later stage when Bogdan Darev, the writer, producer, and director, had this dream. And fun things happen when he has dreams, that he is riding along with you guys and, really getting in there intimately with the camera to just figure out what you go through. And so I ended up making a lot of phone calls. And I didn't even realize you guys have you have like communications directors. And I mean, it's just like a whole huge organization. So, going from the different cities, we started with Seattle and then I tried Bellevue and then we ended up with Renton. And so Renton, Firehouse 13 there, they're amazing. So they end up adding even more texture to the film. And right before we started the ride-alongs with them, we also shot a funeral. And that was kind of the thing that really, I mean, it was like a gut punch, because you just don't even realize, okay, wait, a young guy is now, he's no longer with us, and he leaves behind, a mom and his wife, beloved wife, and children. And so that's kind of, where you come in because you know them. But anyways, so the movie does tell the story from different generations. And I think that, you kind of sewed this together with this beautiful golden thread of all the different, from very beginning of exciting recruit to end, now you're retired and, what do you want to do and how do you want to live? And obviously sharing the stories throughout is what the movie is, but you've seen it. What would you call it? What would you say it's about?
Yeah, I mean, it's about a lot, and that's what's great and interesting about it is Bogdan did a great job of trying to tell a story and use Rudy as the pivoting point of like, hey, this is important and what to know, and then by adding in our friends in Renton, Fire Station 13, kind of showcase, all right, well, this is why guys are still doing it, and then. Yeah, I'm in it a little bit, and I kind of show how I'm trying to stay in it, more like is the best way to look at that, because there is so much exposure within the fire service as a whole. And I don't mean that as like toxic exposure from, I don't know, the chemicals that are coming off of fires, but there is exposure for things like just stress buildup, exhaustion after shifts, lack of sleep, emotionally drained. I mean, we've got stuff like joint issues, back issues, poor recovery habits because we're majority guys, or we're type A personalities, or we just are hard chargers, or maybe we just can't sit still. And then there's the quiet struggles that are out there too. The effects on this job are real, and they don't always look super dramatic from the outside, but they're all there. And I think that's something that we wanted to showcase in this movie as a whole is like, hey, cancer sucks. Nobody's going to argue that. But there are other pieces of this pie that we should, make sure people are aware of and understand how deep these exposures, I guess, are really and where they go.
Yeah. Well, and, I think our shared goal with this podcast is, not just to talk with the experts, but also, with actual firefighters and their families. And I would say, okay, I don't want to predict which episode, but at some point, those of you who stick with us, you're going to just get so pissed off. Like, wait, what? How come I didn't know this? And what can I do? And so hopefully we're going to raise some awareness for people to take some action in terms of, making it better for all of you. And, of course, the retired ones, the ones that are still in it, and then the new recruits, because there is this kind of idea that you guys come and rescue us. And so now we need to rescue you back.
Yeah, no, I mean, I appreciate the opportunity and the floor to kind of have that conversation. I mean, the culture is changing, but it's very slow. I mean, there is more awareness, but there's still kind of a stigma around it. I mean, at the end of the day, a healthy firefighter means healthier departments, which is way better for the community. I mean, cost savings wise, longevity, all that sort of stuff. So we can look at it from a couple different pieces, right? We can look at it from the side that it's better for the community, which is better for the department, which is more longevity. But also, these people are part of our community and it's better for their families. It's better for that. I mean, what a horrible thing to think that, you work 15, 20, 30 years of your life dedicating to service and miss things like birthdays and anniversaries and holidays. And then you end up getting cancer and not being able to share any more with your family, or getting to retirement and not being able to enjoy it because you've given everything you've had to the job. And I think that we need to kind of get ahead of that as our departments get younger. I think we need to think about that for our families. I mean, it's, mental health is a big thing that's talked about in the media all over the spot. But I think that at the end of the day, there's so many different pieces. It's not just the mental health. There's other things that we should look at. And hopefully this podcast brings that out for everybody along with the movie.
Yes, I mean, it's almost like a way to make it okay that to talk about these things. I think that a lot of what I observed is that humor is used to just kind of like, file it away and okay, because you see a lot of crazy things going on, and then by the time you get home, you guys are tired, and then your family, your children, your spouses, everyone's going to want something from you. So knowing that there's just this new awareness now in the ether about what you guys go through, I think it will kind of emanate and really just everyone will sort of understand it more. And I really was shocked by what I saw and learned and continue to learn. And so, yeah, I hope that, it's not just firefighters and firefighters' families, but just anyone, having any kind of curiosity about our first responders. This is where that conversation is going to be happening.
Yeah. And, I don't want to, just say all firefighters have a problem. Obviously, our friends in police, they're first responders as well. They have some real issues. Our paramedics, EMTs, transporters, our nurses. I mean, everybody in this sort of like emergency response field, including dispatchers and call receivers, we all struggle with similar things because we're still human underneath. And we do use a lot of humor to get through things, and they talk a lot about, the brotherhood or the sisterhood of the fire service, which I think has its basis in like paramilitary or military backgrounds, and a lot of folks from that area come. But really, it's a team, and sometimes the best thing to do is just talk about it with your team, and sometimes the best thing to do is talk about it with a professional. So we got to figure out where that line lives in each of us and try to move that direction. So I think this isn't just about for firefighters, like you said. I think this is about for the public as well, to raise that awareness around what we go through. And I don't want to say behind the scenes, but kind of like behind the struggle, really.
Yeah, that's really beautifully said. Um, well, you're the insider. I will try to be the translator because I know there's some things that, will just kind of come up that people it's not necessarily something that they're familiar with. And so I might ask a question like, wait, what does that mean? Or explain that a little bit more. And I do know that, asking for help is not easy for any. I mean, a lot of people just find that like, well, okay, that means I'm defeated or I'm not, strong enough or not cut out for whatever it is if I'm going to need help. And help looks different. It can be talking to somebody professionally. But it's also having the conversations. And so I think by us having these conversations, breaking that third wall or fourth wall or whatever it's called in terms of like, you can really find that people will listen because we all are connected as humans and we all kind of go through struggles. You guys disproportionately so. And yes, I do not want to dismiss our, firefight, excuse me, police and, others, but we did make a movie about firefighters. So, maybe the next one will be about our police
Well,
who we love.
there's a joke in the industry that there was where they're police officers because they didn't pass the fire test. Now that's probably not true, but it is some good ribbing, and we do have officers that we work with every single day that are great human beings, and I know there's been some backlash on their side for a long time, but realistically, I think almost everybody that gets into the police force, same thing they get in the fire service. They have a duty to serve and they want to help their community. And that's true. And they do see different stuff. And, we are the lucky ones that when we come knocking on the door, people open the door and want us to come in. We're the ones in the parade that get the, like, hey, hit the horn. Like, we go by the bus stop, like, get the little honk the horn sort of sign, like. I know even today when a fire truck goes by, I get a little smile on my face too, knowing that like that's a pretty fun job. And when the police come, we just move out of the way, right? So there's some good ribbing and humor that goes on with those guys. But yeah, the movie is about firefighters. And specifically, Rudy is the main guy in it, and his story is really impressive. I think a lot of people probably haven't heard his story, and this is a great way to get it out. But I think it's done a good job of opening this up to other issues and other topics that are important to the fire service.
Yeah, when you said that absolutely agree. And I just am smiling and laughing because I definitely hosted several birthday parties of my boys at our local firehouse. And we had a lot of fire gear and stuff like that, so it's either like you're into trains or you're into the fire trucks or
Yeah, you kind of move through those ages. Like we had a bunch of trains and fire trucks and garbage trucks, and we went
we
through
had
those phases
dinosaurs
boys.
too. Did you
Oh
guys
yeah,
have dinosaurs?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, now we're talking about like changing tires and what do I do about this nail, and I don't have enough money for fuel, so definitely a different time of life than it was before. Or my hair, I have
Yeah.
nothing to wear is the latest one.
But also even the Halloween outfits, and it's so true. Like you guys are the ones that, we look at and we just, I mean, like as women, it's like, oh, the firefighter calendar, and all that kind of stuff.
I'm glad we
Whereas
don't
with
do
the
that
police,
anymore.
you're right.
Yeah,
What's that?
I'm glad we don't really do that as much anymore.
Is that not a thing anymore? I see, I'm totally dating
No,
myself.
there are some departments out there that still do it to raise money or raise awareness. We around this region don't have as much. I haven't seen one in quite a few years. I know we did one that was kind of jokingly with puppies once. That was probably about 5 or 6 years ago, and it
Oh,
did all
like a
right.
firefighter holding a
Holding
puppy?
puppies, yes,
Okay.
yes, exactly, yeah,
But is
exactly.
it like too objectifying or something? Maybe that is why it's
Maybe
sort of.
maybe a little bit, yeah, yeah. And I mean the reality is yeah, there are some firefighters that are in amazing shape, but just like the community, there are some that could be in better shape, and we work on it every day. And there are guys that are absolutely beasts, just amazing human beings, but they're not comfortable taking their shirt off for a camera. So I get it, like I get it.
It takes a special kind of person
It does, yeah, yeah,
who
definitely,
wants
definitely
to
does.
look smacks or whatever.
Yeah, and our department's changing as well. I mean, my personal department. I'm trying to think how many we have. We've probably got over out of the almost 400 uniform employees. We definitely have over 20 female firefighters now, and they hold their own. Like it's great to see it. I mean, we actually this weekend coming up, we're hosting a women in firefighting like kind of like not conference, but where girls over the age of 18 can learn to see if it's something that they want to do. And they get to go drill on the drill field. They get the gear. It's all hosted by our department, and a couple others locally. They have all the rigs out there. There's a lot of great stuff, and it's run by our female firefighters for female firefighters. So it's a super awesome program.
That's awesome. And by the way, like by the time this thing, airs, that event probably will have passed.
Yes, it happens every year.
And you mentioned up in your region, which you're in the Pacific Northwest in Seattle. You said that at the top. And I did not mention that I'm actually right now in Phoenix, Arizona. So I look forward to meeting more firefighters here, not because of an emergency, but we did have an emergency in our family. uh, I guess it was last week. My mother, and I know she wouldn't mind me sharing this story, but she's on blood thinners, as most, elderly people are these days. And, she had a little cut that wouldn't stop bleeding. And so I was like, okay, just hang on, I'll be over, because I knew what to do. But in the meantime, she did call 911. And
No, no.
so I waited outside for them to, let them in. And I told them, hey guys, I just finished a movie about you. And they were so excited, and told them it's called Spoke. And, and anyways, when they came up, they're like, oh, we haven't seen your mom in a while. So I
Oh, so
guess,
they knew her.
so they knew her. And I
Yeah.
was like, Mom, are you calling these guys because they're just all so handsome and,
Yeah.
they come and pay attention to you? But
We definitely
they
have
were
some
great.
folks that you run into more often, whether that's ailments or whether that's, loneliness or whether that's actual real problems. And you get to know people pretty well, and especially if you spend a lot of time in your station for a while and you've got your first due area. Um, it's interesting, but yeah, Arizona's great. I actually talked with a few folks from Arizona earlier this week. They were up here visiting because they're putting together a clinic for our members, which is a super cool thing because they already have one down in Arizona. I'll have to look up the name or put in the show notes or something like that and put a link to them. But hopefully we can get them on in one of our later podcasts, because what they're doing as far as firefighter research and really it's starting from the beginning people get hired. So we're talking about giving folks not just the standard physical that you should get every year, but we obviously have an elevated physical that we do every year, but we want to take it to the next level and do an MRI when you get hired. So then they can do that MRI, and I don't know what the time frame is yet on that, but they can do it over years just to see if anything has changed. Because imagine that, having like a perfect picture of your blood and what's happening inside your body along with outside of your body that follows you throughout your career. You can catch stuff a lot earlier and detect things a lot earlier, and maybe we can save more lives throughout our internal side than we have in years past. So I think it's a great thing. The Phoenix area folks have been well ahead of this curve here, so we're leaning into them to learn more and bring it up here to the Northwest.
Yeah, that's great. Get a baseline and then just sort of track it, because information is power. So that's a really wonderful thing you guys are doing. And then the other thing I wanted to mention, I don't think I realized how your shifts work, but you guys are usually doing, like, you're usually with your same crew. Is it 5 people always, or is it vary
I'd
from
say it
station to
depends.
station?
Yeah, it definitely varies, and it varies across the country. The majority of the country, that, from my understanding, that for guys I've talked to through either the International Association of Firefighters, through conferences or meetings, or just being a little bit of a fire nerd, we usually work 24 hours. So that is kind of from depending on the start time for your department, it's usually 8 a.m. till 8 a.m. the next day. And so I would say that the department size will determine how many people or what's necessary for the response. What I mean by that is, for an example, a fire station usually has a fire engine in it or a pumper truck, depending on what side of the country you're on. And that's usually has a driver, and it has an officer or a captain or a lieutenant, depending on that, on the right seat. And then you've got a firefighter in the back. There is a push for 4-person staffing, so that's considered 3-person, which is usually the average. 4-person is a little bit better. You can do a lot more work with having that 4th person in that fire engine. Obviously, there's an additional cost to the department and to the community to have that. And that engine is I would say the bread and butter of the fire service, right? They put the wet stuff on the red stuff, right? Water in, water out, making sure that they've got the hoses. They can go to all hazards. Obviously, they have stuff for extrication potentially or car wrecks. And the majority of the country does EMS as well, or emergency medical assistance. So you've got maybe EMT basics or EMT advanced or EMT intermediates or paramedics. So those are kind of the different levels of skills and training that they go through to do the medical work. And the higher level it is, the more work they can do or intervene. But there's also, like at my station specifically, we have a truck company or a ladder truck that has 4 people on it. And those guys are specifically trained for high angle rescue, low angle rescue, which is more rope work, confined space, trench stuff. They have more extrication stuff, and their ladder trucks do not contain any water in them like the engine pumpers do. So we would have to hook into that, and then they can use that stick to go up and spray water as an elevated master stream. So like my station, yeah, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got about 8 to 9 people during the day, and then at night that drops down a little bit because we have a non-BLS rig called CARES, which is community. They kind of do the lower tiered sort of stuff, and the more they're trying to help people that are calling 911 more often, see if they can help them navigate the health system here in the States. So it's a little bit of a different animal. But some stations will have like a battalion chief who's kind of the boss over that area or that battalion. Some will have maybe 2 engines in it, depending on what they need. I mean, it's more the needs of that response area of what they have. And then there are things called squads and rescues, and we can get really nerdy about what sort of rigs go everywhere. But yeah, most guys work about 24 hours. Some work 48 hours. Some folks down maybe like in Southern California, they might have to work 72s or 96s, depending on what is called a mandatory, or they have to stay and work. And then the majority of us usually get another 24 off or 48 off. Some of us have more than that off. It just depends on what the contract is with the department or the administration or the city. But for me specifically, I work 1 day on, so 24 on. Then I have 2 days off, so 48 hours off. And then I work another 24, and then I have 4 days off. So it gives us a little bit more time to recover and be better prepared to come back. But sometimes, I mean, the lack of sleep is what really gets you more than anything else. So that's where you kind of get behind, and there's just no catching up on that anymore.
Yeah, the sleep bank. Well, so yeah, that's a lot, and you're for you, it's just like, back of your hand, like you're so familiar with it. I was struck by the wet stuff on the red stuff that you started with. What does that mean exactly?
Just water. Water, I mean, if we want to get really nerdy, so fire is measured in BTUs, right? And the way that we cool down the BTUs is with water majority of the time. If you look at the fire tetrahedron or the fire triangle, it needs a fuel, oxygen, and then some sort of ignition or heat source. If you can take one of those 3 things out, it'll usually put out the fire. We've chosen in the United States to use water. So literally taking the wet stuff and putting it on the red stuff. It's just that basic sometimes.
Oh, so the red stuff is in reference to the actual fire, not the truck.
Correct. No. Yeah, we can. There's a whole nother episode on why fire trucks are red. That's a whole different animal.
And it's like a particular red.
There is, I think, 40 different colors of red right now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, maybe more than that, actually. I mean, we'd have to talk with the manufacturers of the fire engines to figure out how many different colors of reds or shades of red that they have. But yeah, and I'm not sure the full history on when it became red. Or why they chose that, but there would be a lot of arguing if I were to bring up any other like colors in the fire service. But
well, I've seen like I've seen where was I? There was like a yellow one, I think, or something, and
yep, yeah. A lot of airports have yellow. Hawaii, most of Hawaii is all yellow.
Okay.
Yeah, and then in some of the hotter places of the country, like Palm Springs has white. I think there's some blue ones out there. I saw the first black one, but I think that was at the distillery in outside of Knoxville or Nashville or one of those places over there. They've got a
distillery, like as in beer or?
No, Jack Daniel's Distillery has their own fire department.
Oh.
Yeah.
And so they have a black one.
They have a black one. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah,
I mean, listen, maybe like the podcast could be, spoke, but also fire nerd out. Like because it's really cool
there's a lot
how
of
much you know.
I mean, it's just, other podcasts, other, I mean, YouTube's a great resource for stuff, but I mean, there is a lot about, going through the academy and learning the history of stuff and just trying to be, I mean, the reality is firefighting is considered a craft. And a craft, you want to have the history of it. You want to be good at it. You want to keep practicing your craft and get better at that. And I think, we can take it a bunch of different ways, but there's a lot of us that care enough that we're going to put in the time and effort and learn more about it every day. I mean, here's the real reality of it. If you don't like taking tests, don't become a firefighter, because we are studying and taking tests all the time. Like, not all the tests are graded, some of them are, but whether it's emergency medicine, whether it's building construction, whether it's hydraulics, there's so many different pieces to this pie that we have to know. I mean, the joke is like jack of all trades, master of none. And there's some more to that. I can't remember exactly how that actual phase goes, but that's not the case. Like, we want to be good at all of things. And maybe that's why we like this job, is because we are hard headed and want to be, busy. And so when people are like, oh, all you do is sit around and wait for the calls to come. Yeah, we do. That's our job. But during that sit around time, we're either working out, fueling our body, resting for those calls that are going to happen, or studying and taking tests and practicing our craft.
Yes, I mean, I actually I had the privilege of watching some of even the trainings, that you guys do, and watch them work out, watch them cook together in the kitchen. It was so cool just to sort of see, how the shift goes. And for the first couple of times, bizarrely, there were no calls. So we got to do a lot of what we wanted to do, which is interview, the crew and the captain, and just kind of see their day to day. And then, we go back to film, and then we finally did get to do some exciting things. But yeah, no, the test taking, that's interesting. You guys are continuing to iterate and learn and just, know what is going on. And if you have ever, you guys could go onto YouTube and just see like old school training videos. And it's like, I don't even know. Could those guys, I mean, they could probably do a pull up and stuff like that. But now it's just like super intense. You have to be so, almost like scale up a wall just with bare hands and stuff.
Yeah, I'm glad I don't have to do that, but I do know of one of our members that literally climbed up some balconies during a fire to rescue some folks because that they just needed help, and then he just made the decision. Now, he is also a mountain climber, so he's probably well adapted doing that. I do not climb mountains. I take the chairlift. That's what I paid for the lift ticket to go up, and then I ride down. But at the end of the day, there is a lot of different things that firefighters get to do. I don't want to say have to do, because we get to do a lot of stuff, and it's because sometimes we might have to do it. So about this podcast and where we're kind of going with it. I mean, I think the idea is, where do we want to be? How do we want to understand how this goes? And then, what sort of stuff is coming up next, to try to give people an idea of like, why should I even listen to this? Why should I put the time and effort in? And I think that's probably going to come more from you than from me, because I think the people we want to go after is not just firefighters anymore. We want to reach as many people as we can with this.
Yes, absolutely. And anyone that, besides, if your family member, is like, for example, let me ask you this. Do your boys want to get into it?
I think so. I mean, like, I'm not pushing them in any way, but my oldest son, he's in a high school tech program that is for firefighting, and so he's only a junior, so he's got another year, and he's thinking about doing it, and he's super excited. Like, he called me today because they had an extrication class, and he was kind of bummed because they didn't get to cut as much as they wanted to. So I'm like, all right, maybe he's got the bug. And then my youngest, he'll be going into high school next year, and he's already started kind of talking about it, but he's not there yet, so I'm not really concerned. I'll let them figure out their own way, just like my dad let me figure out my own way, which was ironic because I didn't just join after college. I went and did other work. I was actually in advertising and marketing for a long time, and then sales for a little bit. And then finally I was like, all right, when my first kid was born, I need to do something different. I don't want to be this thing. Like I said before, like sitting behind a desk is not my jam. And I found it and fell in love with it. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what they decide to do.
Yeah, that's great. You're giving them the choice. And yeah, well, do we want to talk a little bit about kind of the structure of like who we want, or save that for the second one?
Yeah, I think a few things we want to look at is obviously, we're going to unpack some of the tougher topics that's happening in the fire service right now, and we want to bring people in that are the experts. So it's not just about me and you guessing what's happening, but letting them bring in facts. So one of the biggest ones is what this movie started about, and that's cancer. I think there's a lot of different cancers, and we need to talk about that. I don't want to throw too many numbers out there, but the last one I heard was like 72% more likely to get cancer than the average worker. So that's a pretty scary number.
It's not where you want to be, in first place.
No, it definitely would deter some people from even doing the job if they knew that was the number that it was. But we're doing better. If we can get it sooner, if we can have help with it, like we're doing better. But there is still that risk. But this job is risky by nature. There is no guarantee that everybody's coming home, but that is our ultimate goal, is that everybody gets to come home. I think the other one is PTSD and cumulative trauma, really kind of unpacking like what we see, how that affects us in a day-to-day life, of when to recognize it and what to do about it. And I think that can be also portrayed as, the cup's full. And I think that goes outside of the fire service as well. Like we all get to a point some days where we just feel like, man, this is tough. Like, what am I doing? Especially if you follow a news cycle or you're stuck in some sort of terrible social media echo chamber. And or you just have bad things happen to you or your family. I mean, it can be tough. And so maybe we can find the right people to help us unpack some of that stuff, or just give people the option or understanding to recognize that they do need help. Personally, to me, sleep and recovery, that's something that I've learned the hard way. And if you watch the movie, you'll see some interesting parts about that. So a little embarrassment there. But at the end of the day, I think that's the hardest one. I've heard myself say out loud, I'll sleep when I'm dead. And I think that is the incorrect term at this point in time in my life. And I wish I would have never thought about it that way. Did I have fun? Did I see some sunrises? Did I get up early in the morning, go snowboarding, all that stuff? Yes, absolutely. But recovery, I think, is a big piece of the pie. And hopefully we get the right people in play on here that they can tell us the why. And then you're just not hearing it be like, hey, this is what I told you. It's going to be like, no, this is what the data says, and this is what you should be doing. And we need to make a big, huge change in that in the fire service, because, we just keep going. Kind of energized money.
And wouldn't you say that with that also goes nutrition and the kind of food that you put in your body?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's an interesting animal. There's a lot to unpack there as well. But yeah, with lack of sleep, you make bad eating decisions. It's common knowledge. Including alcohol or other substances or other vices. So I think that all kind of rules together in that. And how do we build better habits, I think, is the biggest piece. And then that kind of leans into the next one, which is family impact. Because the more sleep you have, the more recovery, the better you eat, the less you drink, the better mom or dad you can be, the better human you can be to your neighbor, or the better husband or wife you can be. So I think all of that is important. And I think there is a lot of
Son and
stuff.
daughter,
Yeah, son and daughter. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Don't forget about the folks
brother,
too.
sister,
Yeah, all of that stuff. And I think
neighbor.
we're seeing that impact from our vets, our veterans out there, and then that's all that research is flowing over into first responders. So I think that is a huge piece that we want to talk about. And then I think we want to make sure some of these voices that you guys hear on this podcast are not just from me and you, but are from inside or outside the fire service, right? Like folks that have maybe, obviously we're going to talk about the movie, because that's why we're here, right? So we want to talk about, maybe we have, talking with Brian in sound design, talking with Bogdan about filming. We've got that opportunity. We've got stuff that we can bring on, different chiefs from around the country or scientists from around the country that we want to bring on and have more in-depth conversations on why and what to do next.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's going to be great. And so we're just, we want you guys, besides getting angry, you're also going to, by the end, know what to do exactly, what to do about it.
Yeah, I think this show is for people doing the job, the people that love them, and the people who depend on them without knowing all of the cost.
I love that. That's a good place maybe to end.
Sounds perfect. Let's do that. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.